I need some traction.
Hey, Traction fam, excited for another Traction podcast session. Today, we have the founder and CEO of Product School, the global leader in product management training. He's also best-selling author of the product book, the host of the product podcast, and producer of the Product Con conference and Prodi Awards. Please welcome Carlos Gonzalez. And you can see from his background, the YouTube silver play button. They've got 123,000 subscribers on YouTube with every piece of conceivable knowledge you can find on product on their YouTube channel. I think 2,600 videos. Wow. Carlos, thank you so much for joining us. How you doing?
Oh, thank you for having me. Great intro, by the way. Sometimes I just don't stop and realize like the amount of things that have been happening over 10 years. That's when I started product school.
Yeah, definitely. You know, one thing is constant I've learned through my journey as an entrepreneur and talking to others, right? One of the things that is key to being successful at anything is just showing up, right? Showing up is half the things. The greatest of the greatest, they just show up day in, day out. Consistency is the secret ingredient that turns small actions into big outcomes. And the compound interest on consistency is what we call overnight success, whether it's Gary Vaynerchuk or Mr. Beast. In the early days, their videos sucked, but today look at where they are. Or Warren Buffett, who's the king of compounding. Compound interest on consistency is what we call overnight success. So let's dive through your story. Give us your background and what inspired you to start Product School.
Absolutely. Well, my background is in software engineering. I was born and raised in Spain, and I was told the story that, well, I was good with numbers, and my dad was a doctor, and I don't like blood. I wasn't going to be a doctor, so I kind of took the engineering path, even though I had no idea what that was all about. And forget about product management. I was just there because I was good with numbers, and I guess I liked video games. But I soon enough realized that when I was okay as an engineer, as a coder, that wasn't my passion. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life just coding. And I was lost because I didn't know my options. So I decided to move to Silicon Valley and study master's degree in business at UC Berkeley. And that was refreshing, not for the content that I learned at that school, to be honest, but for the people that I met and the access that I had to other entrepreneurs and other community builders. And then that is when I found out that there was something called product management. I was like, wait a second, what is that? Because still in my MBA, there were no class about product. And a few years forward, as I continue my career as an entrepreneur, I decided to create the school I wish I had, the school of my dreams, which is a hybrid in between engineering school and business school. Those are the two experiences that I had, and none of them really filled my cup. And I found that sweet spot right in between, because in product, I think it's important to be able to build and understand how the machine works. And it's also very important to understand how to market that and how to potentially monetize it. So that's been kind of my journey for the last 15-ish years as an entrepreneur, and the last 10 as the founder and CEO at Product School.
Fantastic. And you know, what's really interesting is my journey in many ways began in product, but it was a time where product management wasn't really a title, in 2004 or 5. And I graduated, and my second job, when I joined a startup in New Jersey, they said, hey, man, you need to talk to customers and figure out their pain points. And then, by the way, you need to also convey these requirements to the devs and tell them what to build so we can prioritize. And oh, we don't have a marketing person. You also need to figure out the product market. Like basically, they didn't use the word product marketing, but you also need to figure out the messaging and what goes out in the marketing materials and the website and everything. And I'm like, wow. And that was a time, I think 2005, 4, where a lot of corporate folks were raising money, but they weren't doing the founder's job. They would hire for this. And I'm like, it was the best experience for me, because imagine like talking to big customers, figuring out their pain points, then I studied engineering, so I need wireframing from computer engineering, from software engineering. So wireframing the requirements, prioritizing, and I was just flying by the seat of my pants trying to combine, because I didn't study product management in school, right? I studied I studied software engineering, and then I combined that with, I read a bunch of sales books to learn on how to figure out pain points. And then I read a bunch of marketing books. I was like creating my own product management knowledge, and it was a lot of fun. And then years later, like the role became popularized. I'm like, oh, whatever I was doing in job one was product management, was literally the best skill to be a founder someday. I'm glad you created product school. So what did the early days of product school look like? What was like V1?
V1 was me. I was the product. And literally bootstrapped the business for the first 8.5 years. So at the very beginning, I said, okay, similar to you, I've had these life experiences where I know not all of the software engineers want to spend the rest of their life coding. I know what it is to be that rebel in a company that knows how to code and is also learning how to sell and do a little bit of the business stuff, but it's unclear what type of label to give. And I decided to create that first curriculum, that structure to teach people how to become product managers. So the first version was me just organizing in-person classes in a co-working space in San Francisco, where I would be the instructor, and 7 professionals showed up. That was V1.
But like, how did you get like your early audience? Like, what would, like, walk me through tactically, what was it actually? You were the product, but like, how were you building that audience and growing that? Because the thing is, it's product school, you're V1, you're going out there and talking. Like, how did you get people interested? How did you turn that interest into money?
I'm going to give you V0. So V0 is, I just have an idea. I still haven't had the class because I don't know if I'm going to be able to have any interest or even have some people willing to pay for it. So what I decided to do was to start testing online. I would go into online forums such as Quora or Reddit and start answering questions that people had around product. And some of the most popular ones were, how can I become a product manager? Do I need a technical background to become a product manager? Do I need an MBA? Or I'm a project manager. What are the skills that I'm missing? Like some of those topics. And I would go and start trying to add value first. This wasn't a sales pitch and like, well, then talk to me. No, I would go a comprehensive answer on what worked for me in order to make that transition. And the good thing about those online forums, especially Quora, is that you can see the name of those individuals. So then I could follow up with them on LinkedIn. And especially for the ones that were located in San Francisco, I would offer to meet in person or have a phone conversation. And that was amazing because I was literally establishing connection with individuals one by one. I'm not talking about scaling this to millions of people. No, literally having coffee or having calls with individuals that I connected online, that I added some sort of value, and I just wanted to continue learning more. So that was the first. Then I decided to start applying some offline tactics and organize free in-person events. And I would use meetup.com or Eventbrite to publish them. And the good thing about those websites is that they also help with distribution. San Francisco, clearly there's a lot of demand for product people, for tech, for startups. So that was a good opportunity for me to leverage other channels before creating my own community. And I started using co-working spaces. I would go to those spaces and offer them to organize a free lunch and learn or weeknight workshop for free. The value proposition was, well, I'm going to bring you 50 to 100 people that would potentially be interested in becoming a member of your co-working. So it's value add for you. I just need to use the space for a couple of hours. And then I would be the speaker. So those events would be free. I would teach specific parts related to product management, such as creating prototypes, running an A/B test, creating a roadmap, just give them a teaser of what our entire program would look like. And of course, have the opportunity to network with them after that interaction. So basically, during the first 2-3 months, I spent most of my time online answering questions on discussion forums and offline organizing as many free in-person workshops as possible.
Awesome. And so you were building your audience in those early days, and anyone who would come to these workshops, you would collect their email addresses and then invite them to future events, kind of thing?
Yeah, more than that. I would have literally 30-minute conversations with them, right? And many of these people would also would follow me from a co-working space to another co-working space. So at some point, I really built, I would call it a community of 20 to 30 very loyal people where I had to spend at least 2 hours with each of them in multiple occasions. So it wasn't just an email list. And that helped me launch the paid program, because when I announced that now there was going to be a 30-hour long program on weeknights in person, and it was going to be around helping people get a product job, 8 of those signed up.
And sign up to what? What was the product one that you put out there?
So product one was a weeknight cohort for 30 hours. It was on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
In person?
In person in San Francisco, and a working space in San Francisco for 8 people, 2 weeknights over 8 weeks. So I think in total it was 40 hours in total, where I would guide those 8 students through the entire product lifecycle to teach them how to build digital products, and also help them get their first product management job by reviewing their LinkedIn profiles, practicing mock interviews, and also connecting them with companies that were actively hiring.
Wow. Definitely. That's great. And then, was that year 1, year 2? When did that first product happen? Year 1?
So I did that for the first 2 years. I almost have a heart attack, actually. I ended up in the hospital
Why?
because that was so much intensity. Like, it sounds great when you go on a stage or on a podcast and give an interview, and sometimes it sounds simple and straightforward. And it was so much work, blood and tears. I had no backup, right? Like I was just burnt out from my previous startup. And my goal was to also make enough money to stay profitable. Like my burn was very low. It was just myself. I wasn't really renting a space or having anything, but still I had to teach all of the classes. Imagine at that point, actually, it started having more demand. I would have a cohort that would go on weeknights, and then another one that would go on weekends. Because what I learned is most of our students have full-time jobs. So the classes had to happen outside business hours, right? So sometimes they would do it during the week, sometimes they would do it during weekends, but I was the only instructor. So to me, I have 2 full-time jobs. One is the instructor, and the other one is the CEO running the operation of the business. And I would also be the speaker for all of those free workshops during the days that I wasn't teaching the paid program. So that was super, super intense. And at that point, I started delegating. I was obsessed with ensuring quality. I didn't want to repeat the same mistake I made in my previous company and try to scale too fast, raise money, and just try to optimize for people that would never going to use my product. Like I knew all of these people by their name. I was helping them, and I'm still helping them like grow their careers. So it was something very special that didn't know if I would be able to scale, but at least paid the bills, and it was really helpful for the people that were using the service. So after those first 2 years, I decided to start expanding still in physical locations. So the second campus was in Mountain View, Silicon Valley. And that was crazy because some of the cohorts are organized on Tuesdays and Thursdays in San Francisco City, the others on Mondays and Wednesdays. So I could cover the entire Bay Area. And I still could handle myself. But at some point when we opened New York or when we opened LA, I had to start delegating. And that step was trying to find the best possible instructors. And what I learned is that I have a lot of passion and obviously knowledge in product, but there are also incredible people out there who arguably have more knowledge than me, definitely more knowledge than me at companies such as Meta, Google, Netflix, or Airbnb. And that's who teaches at Product School today. All of the instructors are real world product leaders who are keeping their full-time jobs at these top companies in Silicon Valley, and they are teaching on the side.
Fantastic. At what point you knew you had a product market fit? What was the signal?
To me, the signal was I can't physically cover more ground just because I'm either going to die just going up and down the Bay Area to teach all the classes, including weekends, and then teach all the workshops. So I have to delegate if I want to grow. And especially when we opened the campus in New York, that was the moment where I said, okay, now we need to figure something out that still allows us to keep a really high quality bar and create space for more people to contribute.
So you basically, you were the single point of failure. You were the instructor, but the demand wasn't stopping because it's a fast growing profession. Every company needs it. And there wasn't, I think you started at a time 10 years ago when a lot of online product communities didn't quite exist, right? Like, I mean, Maven wasn't there, and a lot of these like Coursera's and all weren't there. So you were like first to market in a way. You found a gap, and now you're going up and down the Bay Area, and you're like, dude, I am the blocker here. The interest not stopping. Basically, people are interested in signing up, and they wanted more of you. And you're like, if I give more of you, I am going to die. How did you recruit these instructors?
Yeah, and by the way, one comment on product market fit, because I think it's important. And a lot of people would say, well, I found product market fit because I have 1,000 emails or because I have some sort of other vanity metric. That to me is not product market fit. Maybe my example is too extreme because I maxed out, like I had no more hours in the day to give before scaling. But there has to be additional proof. There has to be customers paying for your product. There has to be real traction in order for me to consider something real product market fit.
I completely agree with this because we bootstrap Boast, and I tell people, there's 4 phases of doing a startup. The first one is validation. You get a few people to pay you to try it out. That's your job. If you can't get people to pay you to try it out, maybe it's not an idea you should pursue. But the next phase is product market fit. And there's a lot of people who say many things about product market fit, like NPS score and stuff. Nothing makes the rubber hit the road more than like when customers put their money where their mouth is, right? And for me, product market fit, like at Boast, was if they leave you, then you can't eat. They paid you to try it out. And if they keep churning, that means you can't eat. You got to keep getting more and more customers. And for me, retention and engagement was a big sign of product market fit. Do they pay you and do they stay? So like, I could completely agree with that analysis. Is like, in the venture back world, you raise lots of money so you can mask product market fit with all these vanity metrics. But when you're bootstrapped, like how you did or I did, man, like you can't use vanity metrics because you're going to die or you're going to starve, right?
Yeah, and you're lying to yourself. There's no safety net. So at the end of the day, can you pay the bills or not? So we got to this point where we were paying the bills. Actually, since the first month, like we were able, second month, which is when I had my first cohort, we realized there was something happening here. And what I decided to do was to start finding who are the best product leaders in the world. Literally, let me start from the top. Since I don't know many people, it cost me the same to reach best than to reach the 10th best. So I would go into my own research. I would start asking people, and I would try to figure out like who are these incredible product leaders at the best possible companies that are been working in product before it was cool. So I love your story, and like 2005, realizing there was something called product. That's actually the case for most of the product leaders. There was no product school, and they kind of ran into this and they became really good. But there's been also other companies, especially Google, Meta. They are pioneers in this because their founders are product people. So they already had product teams, and I would go into those companies mostly through LinkedIn and reach out to their VPs of product and pitch my own idea. Sometimes I would go to conferences for free. I would try to get a free ticket and pitch those top product leaders the idea of first giving a free talk, because I didn't want to scare them with teaching for me, because one, I didn't know if I could afford them, and two, I didn't want them to feel like I was trying to poach them. So offering them the opportunity to give a free talk, it was already cost saving for me, because I wouldn't at least have an extra evening to do something else. And most of them said no. But there's one guy who said yes, and I never forget. His name is Mark Alfaro, and he was one of the very first product leaders at LinkedIn. He was working directly with the co-founders to create the product team, the first product team. So he had a lot of knowledge, not only as a product manager, but also as a product recruiter. And he gave me a shot. He loved the mission, and he resonated with the fact that there was no other path for him when he had to break into product. And he started, teaching some of the free workshops. And from there, I offered him to teach one of the paid cohorts, and he said yes. And I was still so crazy about ensuring quality that I would show up. I would audit the classes. I would either take the events as an attendee or audit the classes. I wouldn't tell people that I'm the founder. I was just there as one more student. And I realized, oh my God, this guy is good. And he's better than me, actually. And there must be others that can do it. So I went through him and I said, okay, who else do you know? And because he got value from this, and he started introducing me to others. LinkedIn, Meta, Google, and other incredible companies. So again, one by one, similar to what I had to do for students, and really creating that connection and spending real quality time with each of them, I would try to do the same with those instructors in San Francisco.
Fantastic. Now, you were still predominantly an in-person community, right? How did you keep adding more and more members? What does the sequence look like of building and growing your community?
Great question. Because as a product person, I started treating my own company and this type of challenges as a product. And I realized, okay, phase 2 is I can't scale myself when there's a campus in New York. So I need to find instructors there. But phase 3 is adding more and more campuses. At some point, we got 16 physical campuses. 14 of them were in the US, and there was one in London and one in Toronto. So we figured out how to automate the process. And here is the cheat sheet. Co-working spaces. Co-working spaces gave me a lot of flexibility to not have to own anything. I could rent conference rooms by the hour in the cities where there was enough demand. And another great thing for the co-working spaces is that most of the people, they monetize 9 to 5. So there was an amazing opportunity for those spaces to actually monetize after business hours. The space is paid for and nobody's using it. So I would pitch them the idea of renting those conference rooms during times that nobody's ever going to rent a conference room. So they would give me an even better rate. And that's how we did it. Sometimes we would leverage WeWork, but sometimes we would leverage other local co-working spaces. There were a few variables to keep in mind, such as who's going to open the door and what other type of support do they provide during those times, weeknights or weekends. And then we would find top product leaders that live in those cities to participate as instructors. And same thing with events. We created an entire process to host at least one event per week in every single campus, and at least one paid cohort in every single campus. Some campuses like San Francisco would have 5 cohorts going on concurrently and maybe 3 free events every week. So it would depend on demand. I also started hiring small group of people, always very thoughtful about what is the ROI on every single hire. But the good thing is that for some campuses, I wouldn't even need to hire anybody, because I just needed a conference room by the hour and an instructor by the hour. All the other back office logistics could be done remotely.
Fantastic. Wow, that's a great model, right? You did it in person. And I'm a big fan of online, but I feel like, anytime you bring people together in person, you're incorporating multiple other senses and you tend to build stronger bonds. Now, how did you transition to going online? Because you have 123,000 YouTube subscribers today. You have a silver play button, which is huge. And you've got more than 500,000 email subscribers. That is nothing to laugh about. And that's very difficult to do. How did you transition to this digital property?
That's phase 4, where we realized that, okay, there are only enough cities that make sense to continue teaching product management, because there also has to be demand for jobs. There has to be enough companies in those places that are recruiting our graduates. And then we started considering India, because there's a lot of demand, but the logistical challenge with a 15-hour different time zone would start, and the unit economics would start making that more challenging. Like the price point would need to be much lower. So it stopped becoming obvious what is the next physical location. So in a way, we maxed out physical locations, the same way I maxed out myself when we started adding campuses, and we maxed out physical campuses, and we decided to launch our online campus as option number 17. The hypothesis wasn't that everything is going to go online. It was, well, let's use online as a catch-all for students who live in cities where we do not have a physical location. But
when did you decide to go online?
Oh, this is way before COVID. This was in 2018.
Awesome. So and prior to that, you had 16 physical locations,
Yes.
and where you were hosting a weekly event for a long time, and now you're like, hey, we've maxed out. And I like that analogy, right? Like in product, we often say you should earn the right to do the next product. And every company that scales eventually has multiple products. And how do you earn the right? Is like your customers are telling you, I want more, but you're like, I'm maxed out, right? They want more of you, but you don't have more to give. And that's where like, hey, you know what? I think I got to scale right now, right? I got to add a new channel or a new product or a new geo, or I got to do something. So this is a good framework as you go from validation to product market fit to scale kind of thing.
That's the blessing and the curse of bootstrap business. Like I have so much skin in the game, and and every single decision is very well thought out, right? Like every single hire, every single campus, every single instructor has to be value add. Otherwise, why would I do it? It's my own money, it's my family's money, you know. So that type of I think spirit still stays, even though I'll cover more about like our funding process after a while. But anyway, 2018, we decided to open Campus 17 and call it online as a catch-all. But here's the aha moment. We realized that at least 30% of the students signing up for online were living in cities where there was a physical campus. They were choosing online, even though the price was the same and the experience, the resources that we were investing in the students were the same. That was counterintuitive to me, because I first thought that maybe online would be, people would assume of online as something that is less quality, and it wasn't the case. So when this started happening, we realized that online would give us a lot more opportunity to scale while ensuring quality. So slowly but surely, what we decided to do, online became the fastest growing campus for us, and the #1 revenue generating campus for us. So as we now have a portfolio of 16 campuses, we decided to start allocating more resources to the best performing campuses. So we slowly started to shut down some physical locations that were still profitable, but would require too much effort compared to the opportunity of adding more cohorts to online. And I think another benefit of online was that people not just wanted convenience, they also wanted access to the absolute best product leaders in the world. So no matter where they're based, they are going to be learning. All of our instructors are based in Silicon Valley or New York. So they are accessing directly those product leaders who are working at the best companies in the world, not the best companies in their town. So we started shutting down some physical locations. So by the time COVID hit, we were already fully online. And that was an opportunity for us, because we didn't have to correct last minute. We were already an online company, a company that was delivering all of our services live online, as well as a fully remote company. And our entire team is working online from all over the world.
That is fantastic. Now, how did you add more and more subscribers? How did this grow? Because before you went online, how many, I guess, users or community members did you have? And then how did that trajectory change as you started to go online? And what tactics did you use to grow?
Yeah, the tactics change, because at some point the in-person events max out. At some point, answering questions on online forums max out. Like what took me from 1 to 10 students is different than what took me from 10 to 100, from 100 to 1,000. Now we have a community of over 2 million members. In addition, because they are fragmented, right? There are subscribers on YouTube, there are emails, they're in other social channels. Global, it's over 2 million people. And right now, there are some things that, even though don't fully scale, or there are things that could scale better, we decided to keep. We still do live events. We just happen to do them online, but they are live. They are not just on-demand videos that do not have interaction with the instructor or the speaker. We also started, and that allowed us to do much more than that, and as well as capture much more demand, because now everyone could join. So imagine some of the events that in person would have 100 attendees, now started having 1,000 plus attendees. We also decided to start investing more and more in community, in adding as much value as possible upfront. I always say and tell the team that Product School is a community first. Of course, it is a business, but the community aspect goes first. And 90% of the resources that we create are absolutely free and available for everyone. It's not just events. We also have reports, we have books, we have discussion forums, we have a job board. And that doesn't require for you to become a paid student. So that was the idea of scaling through online without sacrificing quality. And for us, quality means doing things live, even if they're online, and doing them with the absolute best. Instructors that participate at Pro School need to be practitioners who are working at the very best companies and know how to build real stuff. These are not just traditional teachers.
Makes sense. Now, what were the key things that took you to 2 million? Like, what are some tactics? Maybe you can tell us maybe one or two that were very helpful in driving you ongoing users.
Okay, I'll give you a couple related to online events that worked very well for us. Number one, a lot of the social networks that we use today, such as LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, did not have an option to host events. And when they launched that, I think Facebook was one of the pioneers. They would allow people to create an event and also live stream the event. We became one of the first movers. And that gave us an incredible competitive advantage, because when platforms like Facebook launch a new feature, they're very interested in increasing engagement of that feature, which means they typically start sending more in-app or push notifications just to ensure that the existing users understand and get value from those new features. So when we started putting our events not only on Eventbrite or Meetup, but on Facebook, we get more than 10x the attendees, because Facebook was already pushing that new feature to a wider audience. So we benefited from that a lot. Then LinkedIn did the same thing, and that was huge for us. Then Clubhouse did the same thing when they launched audio events. So for me, it's been very important to be the first mover when there is an opportunity in some of these distribution channels. Because one, it's free to test. Number two, if you can move in first, you can get a massive unfair advantage than if you join later. Because at some point, when enough users are adopting those features, the platforms start reducing the amount of push they are doing, just because otherwise it becomes very, very spammy.
I completely agree. And that's what, if you see now on Substack, right? Lenny has a newsletter on product, and he's completely exploded on Substack because he was first to market in many ways on Substack. And so but the thing is, how do you know then a channel is going to completely explode? You don't know, right? You just have to make a bet and go deep there.
Exactly. You don't know. And another thing, and one thing that you know is that even if you find a good channel, that channel eventually will max out. So it's part of that growth and experimentation mindset that I try to keep fresh, even though we're now at a different stage of maturity. Our growth team is in charge of identifying either new channels or new features in existing channels and test and see traction. If we do see traction, we double down. If we don't see traction, we try something else. And we try to make that part of the culture. It's not an afterthought. It's not about, oh, wow, I just heard in an interview that someone posted events on LinkedIn. Let's go and start posting events on LinkedIn. You can do it, but the benefits you're going to get are now probably nominal compared to the benefits of doing that 3 years ago. So I'll give you an example. Today, we are very much testing short clips. Even though we're big on YouTube, we are now pushing really hard the feature for short clips. We're also pushing really hard the feature that YouTube has to post images without videos. We're experimenting with some of those things because what I said, I saw the benefits at a different stage when we were much smaller.
Interesting. What are some of these first to market channels you tried? Like, maybe give me two that completely exploded for you. And what are one or two that you tried that failed and you had to abandon? That would be some good learnings there, I think.
Well, I mentioned at the very beginning, Quora was massive for me to create answers on discussion forums. Eventually, I maxed it out. Meetup.com and Eventbrite were massive for me when I started with in-person events. Facebook and LinkedIn were massive for me when they released the feature to announce events. We were very successful in the early days of Product Hunt as well. because we were able to announce some of our new free resources there, and they would give us massive distribution across a community of builders. And now it's massified, right? So the distribution benefits are way smaller than before. Channels that didn't work well for me, I would say TikTok. We haven't figured that out yet. We tried, but it's still unclear. Twitter Spaces, I found a lot of benefits with Clubhouse when the audio only events started, and I became one of the top influencers there. But since Clubhouse became less popular and Twitter took over, and then I saw Reddit launch their own audio only version, we haven't cracked that code yet. One other thing that I would say worked really well for us, we started doing conferences. We saw the success we had with our events, and we said, well, let's do something much bigger. And we started hosting 3 conferences every year in San Francisco, New York, and London. They would bring around 2,000 people in person. And the real win for us was that we decided to live stream all of those conferences for free. We would use a platform called Hopin, and we were also one of the first movers. I got to know the founder when they were in beta, literally, and it became one of the largest or the fastest growing companies in history for some time. Well, that possibility of giving people access who are not in San Francisco, New York, or London to participate in a conference for free has still been massive, and it pays dividends. We still do these conferences and offer the free live stream option.
Fantastic, man. I love all the tactical advice here. Now, was there one or two that failed miserably for you?
Well, I mentioned I haven't figured out TikTok yet. Want to believe that even though I'm not very young anymore, I still got it. We obviously have now a bigger social media and content team that is on it, and I haven't given up yet because I see the potential. So that's one. I'm very curious about these new formats, short clip formats that are being pushed through YouTube, through Instagram with the stories and the reels.
It's the future. It's the future. Trust me. Like as I was writing the book, I was seeing like people's attention spans are going down, and I think there's this content journey, right? Like initially it was a little longer form video or a tweet that hooks them into your content. Then you read a chain of tweets or a Twitter thread, and then you hook to somebody's newsletter. So it's all the journey of bringing the customer. And I think right now what's happening is short video content is a way to hook people, to get them to sort of come into your community and get a taste for it. And they start scrolling, they like it, then they hit subscribe, then they come to the grander scheme of things. I think though what happens is with just so much content on social, and this is what I'm trying to figure out, is you need to have a very compelling hook that almost like reels people in, like it stops them, right? They're doom scrolling. And what's happening on TikTok and Instagram and Shorts is it's not like LinkedIn. It's not just business content. You're competing with memes and jokes and dance and all kinds of other personal stuff that you really gotta stand out for people to say, oh, I'm gonna stop and listen to this. And I think like what's happened is when it was 1 minute, like I was reading some stats that the consumption of shorts on YouTube is higher than any other form of content. And actually, it's a gateway to listen to bigger, longer form videos. The other thing, what I'm seeing is content that's less than 30 seconds, 20 seconds is getting a lot more watch time. Like it's almost like, like tweet size, 10 seconds, 20 seconds. So that's very interesting. And I think you have enough content where you can reposition and come up with a very interesting hook to reel people in.
Yeah. And the key for me with that is contextualizing the content to the different channels. Because our LinkedIn, for example, is extremely successful. We have almost 300,000 followers on our LinkedIn page. And I'm a top voice on LinkedIn. But if you look at my TikTok profile, it doesn't have enough followers. And we're trying to see how can we make business fun in a space where people are looking for fun, right? Not trying to make them boring or smell. So I think it's fascinating. I also, as a podcast host, and you were on my podcast as a guest, it's been such an amazing learning experience. Because when I started the company, my goal wasn't to become a content creator. My passion is to build. to build products. And I just realized that you can also build content. And those two things, there are some patterns there. So as I'm a huge podcast consumer, and I'm now a podcast host. So I've been learning by doing how to interview, right? How to create those moments that are interesting for the audience, because I'm also the audience. And I started consuming content or podcast on YouTube, which now it's obvious, but before it was very counterintuitive. The definition of podcast was audio only for a long time. And then YouTube and others started offering video, so people could see the humans talking, not just listen to them. And that gave me an advantage when we hosted the podcast on YouTube. And now I'm seeing how a lot of people, myself included, are consuming long form podcast interviews in short form clips.
Wow. So that is, I'm looking forward to it, because once you can get people hooked and reeled in, I think it explodes. You gave us a lot of good tactics here. Let's shift gears now. What advice would you have to individuals who are considering a career in product management, especially those who may just be starting their journey?
Yeah, well, I think it's the best time in history to build digital products, because now there's much more information available. Good one. There are many more companies hiding that are fully aware of what good product management is, and they have product teams. So it's now a much better time than yesterday, and probably a worse time than tomorrow. It's not too late. If someone is thinking, oh my God, but I look at these kids are becoming PMs. Yes. And there's no age associated to becoming a product manager. It'll probably be harder in the future as your cost of living becomes higher. So timing is good for people considering that. That's number one. Number two is the same way there is more opportunity, there is also more competition. So some of the tactics that maybe would fly in the past are not going to fly if you are a candidate. If you treat yourself like a product and say, okay, I want to become a product manager, applying to product manager jobs, spamming hiring managers with long cover letters just doesn't fly, because you need to add value and you need to be a good fit for them. Otherwise, why would they hire you? So it's important to put in the extra work and separate yourself from the majority of people who are just requesting a PM job and not doing anything extra about it. So that's number one. Like, it's good to want it. It's a good time to go for it, and it's not easy. So you have to do something else. What else? Well, that's what we do. We literally take professionals who are hungry. We have experience in different disciplines. Could be engineering, could be marketing, could be sales, and help them get that final job, that first PM job. And they do it through hands-on training. There's a very specific and intense program for 2 months part-time. It doesn't need you to quit your job or put your life on hold, to really take you through the job that you are going to be doing when you are hired. And the other part is learning how to get a job. It's as important as learning how to do the job. So preparing your own resume, accessing to the companies that are actively hiring, positioning yourself in a way that those companies are want to talk to you. It's a science. It's not a dark art. Like, product managers are not visionaries that were born with secret talents and suddenly got hired. This is something you can learn, but you have to put in the work. And today, at least, you have places where you can do that. And if training is not the only option, you can also consider coaching, mentorship, or others. The point is, you need to start making progress towards it. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen.
Certainly. Well said. Something else you said, I never wanted to be a content creator. I'm a builder, but I'll tell you something. Everyone is a creator today, right? Like, whether you're creating products, whether you're creating playbooks like you are, whether you're creating content, whether you're creating physical products, materials, art, I think we're all creators, right? And I think creator is an all-encompassing thing. And when you're an entrepreneur, especially a bootstrap one, you can't get away from being a multifaceted creator, because you got to create content, you got to create playbooks, and you got to create content and products and everything else. You're like stretching in different areas. What a journey you've had, man. Did you raise money eventually?
Yeah, that's phase 5. So when we realized that we were maxing out our online campus, at least with our current resources. This is when COVID happened, actually. We literally tripled our business just because online became the only option for the world to learn. And product management became extremely relevant for a lot of companies that were forced to start offering some of their services and products online. So at that point, we realized, okay, we need to keep our leadership position in a new market that is expanding. If we just keep doing this ourselves, we might be too late to the party. We might still be like a cute mom and pop shop, but we might not become the global leader in product training, which is our vision. So we decided to go for it with a caveat. Because in my previous company, I raised money probably too early. I raised from VC, and again, I burned out. I was optimizing for the wrong metrics, and I realized that I wanted to keep quality high. And the good thing about being bootstrap and profitable is that your BATNA, your best alternative to non-negotiated agreement, your backup plan is to walk away, because I could continue running the business without any external capital. So that gave me a lot of confidence when going to market. And during those years, even though I wasn't considering to raise money, I was always taking the phone calls from investors that would reach out. And that would allow me to learn more about how they are thinking about the space. And I learned there's something called private equity that is different than venture capital. And they have a different type of growth expectation and return expectation. So I realized that my business, in order to keep a really high quality standard and be able to stay focused in product and be the best at it and not have to start diversifying and diluting the quality of our services, we wouldn't be able to 100x, 200x a business and be an all or nothing type of play, which is a really respectable play for venture capital. I realized that private equity was more aligned with my growth and return expectations, which was let's 5x the business within the next 3 to 5 years. Let's stay profitable as we continue growing, and let's stay focused in product. And that was life changing for me, because I just didn't living for too long in Silicon Valley made me realize that made me think that the only way to raise capital was venture. That just so many other options. And then within private equity, I realized that there were also growth equity, which is groups that are okay buying a minority stake in the business. Because I came to terms with the idea of raising capital on my terms. Part of those terms was I didn't have to sell the majority of the business. I believe in what I'm building. I am loving it. I want to continue driving the vision for the company. And that's why I ended up finding a growth equity firm that was completely aligned with our vision. They were experts in education technology. They were totally okay with us staying profitable and growing at a 5x rate. And they were adding a lot of value because they knew the market and they've seen these movies play out in other verticals. So that was what we decided to do in the summer of 2020. Yeah. That's so we've been invested by this group called Leads Illuminate almost 2 years now.
Fantastic. That's the route we took as well, right? You bootstrap for a while, you make enough money, and then you raise on realistic expectations, and hopefully you got to take some money off the table and de-risk as well. We definitely did, because it's really, really hard bootstrapping. And I got to, me and my co-founder got to take some cash off the table and de-risk a little bit in the short term while we continue to play the long game. Now, what's next for product school as you look into the future? What is new? What is exciting?
Phase 6. Phase 6 for us is our expansion into enterprise or B2B. A lot of when we started the company, all of our programs were for individuals that wanted to pay out of pocket or be reimbursed by the companies, but basically it were public cohorts with employees from different companies. A lot of those, and we learned that a lot of those employees were being reimbursed by their companies, and they would now take us to those managers that approved the investment and tell us, hey, like we have many other people that would also benefit from the program. So it was more of a discovery as we were building our consumer business, that we could go into those large companies and offer similar programs completely private for their employees. And that would also allow the companies to get much more custom. So we have 2 business units right now. The consumer one, that is what everybody sees on the website. And now we have the enterprise one, which is private training for large companies such as JP Morgan, Walmart, Microsoft, or Cisco.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I love it, man. This has been a great conversation. A lot of tactical advice straight from the heart. Love your journey. Love how you broke it into phase 1 through 6. Wishing you great success. A lot more zeros through evaluation. I truly believe good things happen to good people, and you're one of the rare ones, my friend. Any parting words of wisdom, anything that you'd love to share?
Thank you for the opportunity. I love what you are building and how you think about community as well. Just offer access. If anyone wants to continue the conversation with me, I'm available on LinkedIn. Just feel free to connect and reach out.
Yeah, folks, and check out Carlos's Product School content. Go to productschool.com, and they have a lot of channels. Search for Product School on the podcast, the product book, but you can find, I'll make it easy by just giving you one link. Go to productschool.com, scroll to the footer under resources. There's the product book, there's the product management blog, there's the product podcast, and there is product management templates, and you can read a lot about their events, certifications, and programs. Thank you so much, my friend. This was fantastic.
I need some traction.